few items has been added here, and a lot of UX improvements in the solution, a lot of feedback. And one of those is about the customization of the panel, be able to interact a bit more for the content being displayed. And one of the requests, for instance, was, the legend. The legend, when you retrieve content and we display, the names of the attribute that has been used into your query, these values, for instance, if you go, for instance, on the NAS side, or, tasks can be long with different, level in the text displayed, recurrent content, and that can be a long text, for instance, display in the legend. And here, what we've done for all the different type of visualizations available, if it's a pie chart or bar chart or others, what we've done is the ability to have to use regex expression to trim, the content displayed. For instance, here in this example, we've got, without regex, you've got this enterprise manager telemetry release, but at the end, I want to use, trim and remove all the content before. And with the regex defined, in the panel, now you can say, all right, I'm just going to have the rest, in this case, you separate with a semicolon, and then, the legend will be showing content here, which is pretty cool. For some of the customers, they can trim, they can rename. For instance, if they've got like sensitive information in the name, but just want to show only part of the names, that's now, they're able to do that, which is pretty cool. The other one is the SVG. Images that you can bind now into your in the panel, and this is pretty cool too, especially when you set some kind of thresholds, based on the value that you are displaying. Say, hey, if you are above a certain level, you want to see a thumbs up, or if you under a certain threshold, the thumbs down. Now it's possible. It means you can link some SVG, and there is in the documentation very good link that list all the different SVG you can have, free of use, that can be used, in the panel directly. It means pretty cool features, here brought into these new versions here. The other one, in a previous version, we brought the multi-join that was a request from customers, in panels. It means not only show information for a data source, but in our case, because we've got information from inventory, from alarm, from performance, we want to be able to combine, this information together. And especially, for instance, you want to see, inventory. When I say inventory, is like your call TAS entities, and we have in TAS entities or in the inventory, data source, service names or service information, and entity information. It means here you can bind, for instance, some service information with, some state, some health coming from NAS, for instance, and you see, some SVG here to say, hey, the risk is up, you've got a warning, or you've got, a green items here, very fast. And the same with inventory and alarms, means you can combine both. And we're using like a data source called AIOps Insights. And now what has been done in this version is not only have one metric from the linked or the data source, the joint data source, right? Now we can go to up to 12 metrics, here that we can display, in the right side, of your panel, which is pretty nice, as well here. If I move on to the metrics aggregation, that was another, cool feature that's been brought into these versions. Is now we support different math operations and listed here, sum, mean, derivate, counts, etc. And with some, leveraging, some content here directly, query language here, where we can, group, and in this version we have, one group allowed, group by allowed into the versions, here for your source. And then you can use up to 10, math operator afterwards. And this is, the limitations here. And this is very good, start to do some aggregation, some math from high level, at the service level, for instance, that you can, show content aggregated, to end customers, based on, some query language here, use, which is, one of the cool features. And then, the next miscellaneous, what we've done as well, we have upgraded to 7.5.5, from 7.2 release. in this version, and one of the reasons for that is the next bullet item, which is the critical vulnerability fixes. With the new versions of Grafana, a lot of high critical severities were present in 7.2, and the new versions we were able to remove them. One of the big reasons for that, and other cool features that it brought, and what we have as well is the other things that's been done is limit the concurrent sessions, and that was FedRAMP related enhancements to be, to be FedRAMP compliant on the path to that. And that's been brought to these versions. And we added, new out-of-the-box dashboards. Here, like we've got some APM site-minded dashboards included into this release, as well as some capacity analytics, what I was just previously mentioned, during the previous sessions, and especially for the non-percentage dashboards, we have the out-of-the-box dashboard that supports, these metrics here, and then another screenshot from 755, type of visualization available. And this is very high level, presentation from what has been done, since the previous versions here.
Hi everyone, I would like to demo the new features that are developed in DX dashboards. As everyone is aware that previously we have started supporting NAS in both basic version and then advanced version. Now we have started supporting metric aggregations as well. So metric aggregations is a way where you can perform different arithmetic operations on top of the data that we have. And also we have started supporting metric aggregations in join, and as part of visualization and panel plugins. So we started supporting additional formatting on all visualization charts. This is a way to extract parts of the data of interest using the regex extraction. And we previously we were using Grafana 7.2.0 version. So now we have upgraded to 7.5.5 version. So you'll see some noticeable changes in the UI, as well as this build is more stable than the previous build with respect to transformations. So you would see new transformations have got added. There are small features that were added from 7.2 to 7.5. So this particular build, we'll be able to see the shortened URL. For example, when you want to share the dashboard URL to someone, we go to the share link and then we just say we copy the share link, right? So previously, whenever we copy the share link, the link used to have all the variable names, time range, and everything appended, and it used to be too large. Now, if you enable the shortened URL, instead of all those dashboard IDs, variables, and the time ranges, we'll just have a small string on top of it. So it will be a very short URL. This is a small feature that was added. And one very useful feature here is the variable dependencies. So when you are building a complex dashboard, right, we create a lot of template variables. Say I have a host name, group name, service name, all these will be template variables. So when you after you build, when someone opens a dashboard or when we later open the dashboard, it is very difficult for us to understand, okay, which variable is this associated to what. So if I have 10 variables, which variable is dependent on what variable, and exactly in how many places am I using this variable in the dashboard. So such things are very difficult to actually remember or for someone else to understand. So we have this new option called show dependencies, which will show a graph of how these variables are dependent in themselves. And we also have a show usages thing, which will actually bring up this graph. So for example, if I say filter by show usages, it will bring up this graph chart where all the red highlighted places are where this particular variable is actually used in the dashboard. You can zoom in and see more clearly. I'll show it to you in the demo. And the another feature is around whenever you are adding more queries. Previously, the naming convention used to be A, B, C, D, and so on. Now you can rename it for better readability and understanding. And as also as I was mentioning, please do try transformations because it has a lot of enhancement and it is getting friendly to change the graphs into the way you want. You can rename the column names or you can hide some columns. It is actually very easy now using transformations. You can do joins and all. Okay. As I've already spoke about metric aggregations there. So generally in SQL or relational databases, how do we query the data? We would say select star from so and so table. where data matches a given clause and then group by a column and then group by another column. So, and also it's just not select star, right? We also say select sum of this particular column or count star of something. So this is how we do it in relational databases. But this metric store or NAS has never given us this power till now. But using NASQL, they have provided a way wherein you can do something very similar to SQL language. The how you query SQL language, you can do a similar set of operations on NAS now. Suppose I have a certain CIs in my inventory and I want to show set of metrics from the metric store. So I have a group of CIs of interest from the inventory, and when I want to pull the metrics, I used it was only possible to just get one metric. Say I have a services, I want to know the service, its state, location, from the inventory store, which I can actually get using insights. But when I want to get a set of metrics, it was not possible before. You can either get risk or health or any one metric only alone. But now with this metric aggregations, right, you can pull around 20 metrics from the metric store. So from tasks or from the inventory, pull all the attributes you want. Similarly, from metric store, you can pull up to 20 metrics and then show them like this. See, if you see in this chart, I have the service name, state, and health and risk are the two metrics I have pulled from metric store. Similarly, you can pull up to 20 metrics and show them in this table format. I already have the DX dashboards launched here. So we'll start with the demo of the metric aggregations, and then with the similar query, we'll see how to do it with the Insights plugin. So let me click on create dashboard and add a new panel. My use case here that I want to show is to get a service and its last reported value for the health metric. So I want to get a service and the health particular metric called health, I want the last reported value. So generally, how do we do it? We go and select metrics here, and this is the basic builder. So if you know the metric name, we write service underscore health. So this is how we do in a normal AIOps metrics basic builder, right? But now let me try to show this to you in SQL. So let me select metric aggregations. When you select metric aggregations, for now, we just support the raw query format. We don't give a query builder kind of option here. So we just support the raw query format. But we have given a small example here. Let me just show you. I know it is a bit difficult to understand when we are seeing this for the first time. Let me show this to you once. Okay, so NASQL is like this. So you have a query, and within the query, you'll have different OP means operations. You'll have different operations. So here from clause indicates that I want data that matches this particular query. I'll shortly show you an easy way to write this particular query specifier, but a from clause says that okay, I need this particular query. And I was actually telling you that I need the last reported health metric for a service. So what are we talking about? We are saying that we need to group by service, right? As per my problem statement, we need to group by service, and the metric is service health, and I want the last value. So I need to have an operation called last on top of the metric, and I need to group by service, right? So this what we need to do here is, let us go into this document. Let us check what is the syntax of group, or probably what is the syntax of last. So these are the set of all operations that NASQL supports. So let me select last here. So what should we do for last? We have to write the from clause, and then we have to group by something, and then we have to write an aggregation clause which says get me the last value. So from this example, whatever we have, I am slightly modifying it to just pick the service health. Okay, for now, let me remove the second from clause. In fact, let us remove this whole thing from here. Okay, let me just put this query and see what happens. Okay, let me just blur it out. Here the mode is stable, so we get it as switch. It automatically prompts me that do you want to switch to table view because you have selected as table. Now what do we see here? I see the value, the source and path, and the time during which the value is reported, right? So if you see here, I just made a query which says give me anything that ends with service health as my metric. So this is the table that I'm getting. Now let us go further in our use case. So our use case is that we need to group by service, right? So group by. Let me just take the group by syntax, right? And let me just say this. So we are just grouping up by service name. And uh, what is our actual requirement? We need to pull the last value of aggregation, right? So let me copy this from the last. And here, if you see, it asks us what is the column that you want to pull the last value from. If you see my first query, the OP from, I have named it as health as the alias. So just replace this with health. Now we'll be able to see the list of services and the health. And this health is actually the last reported value of health. I can do any operation here. You can put some mean, of course, for health, all those do not make sense, but you can put any operation here, the whatever NASQL supports. So for now, let me leave it as health. Okay. So our use case is solved with NASQL, right? I am able to pull per service what is my last reported value of health. And I was just telling transformations, right? Here, I'll show you one thing. Say organize fields. Here you can actually directly hide any field or rename the field. Let me make this service name. Okay. So this is my table. I have health per service. Okay. And in case, as I was showing you here, group by this particular syntax, right? If you are not aware of this particular, so I know that there is a attribute called service name that has been registered as part of a service. So in the NASQL document, they say if you know the attribute name, just put metric dot attribute dot and the attribute name. That's the reason I have directly grouped by this attribute. But you can very well group by metric dot source, comma metric dot path always, and you can still get the values and you can extract from them. So you'll get the source and the path names, and also you can extract a part of it and then print just the service name. You can do anything. Just go through this document, which is actually very helpful in okay. This document will show you the syntaxes on what to do, but you should know this attribute names beforehand if you want to group by attributes. Okay. Now let me take the same example and go to Insights plugin. Okay. So for an Insights plugin, my use case is I want to have the service name and location from inventory store, but I want to match it with the metrics from the metric performance metric store. So for that, we need to select the Insights plugin. And as we all know, Insights plugin is used for join. It asks us to select two different data sources. So my first one is inventory. And because we are looking for services, we need the type as SA service, right? And I just need the name, type, and state. I don't want the product and location. So let me switch it off. And this error message does not go until you select two data sources and a join condition. So let me select metrics. Okay. And here, let us switch to metric aggregations. Let I'm modifying this because I need service health. Okay. And I'll modify it because I also need service risk. Okay. And if you see, this is almost the same query, but it has, let me copy this for you. It is almost the same query, but it has two from clauses. So likewise, you can repeat the from clauses, 20 different from clauses, and you can just change your metric name here. Okay. But all, but remember that for every from clause you write, you have to put an alias and you have to do what operation you want on top of the from clause using this aggregation. So if I repeat it 20 times for 20 different metrics, I need to write 20 different operations, obviously, right? So this is like this last or sum of errors per interval, mean of response time. So any operations you have to just keep on adding here as you add the from clauses. So let me just keep this here. And then we have to add one more data source called insights. This third data source will help us determine the join type. So I want inventory and metrics join. This will ask me to switch to table view. Okay, so I got the service name, state, and type from AIOps inventory, and I got the health and risk from metric store. You see these additional columns. These additional columns are shown here because you are grouping by. I'm grouping by metric source and path here. So any column that participates in your definition will be shown as part of the table. So as I was showing before, let us just go organize fields and let me quickly hide them off. So this is the table of our interest, right? You can rename the column names or anything, but I have got name, state, and type from inventory and health and risk from AOPS metrics. As I was telling, you can define any operation, any arithmetic operation can be performed using this metric aggregations. I can just say sum, and it will show you the sum of the total risks that are reported, which is actually I should always pick the last, but I'm just showing an example of that. And okay, the third topic I want to cover is about the Grafana 7.5 upgrade. Satya will be sharing the screen for a minute here. As Grafana 7.5 upgrade, there are four things. One is transformations have been improved a lot. The second thing is the shorten URL. So whenever you are sharing an URL, we generally go and click on the share button beside the dashboard name, right? So here, if you see the link URL, it is actually very huge. You'll be able to see the variable names and the time ranges and everything. See, we see the UID of the dashboard, the name of the dashboard, org ID, refresh interval from and to, and everything. Now let us just switch on the shorten URL. So when you switch on the shorten URL, it becomes tiny and it is actually much nicer to look. That is the feature that they have introduced in Grafana 7.5. It replaces everything with a small ID. Okay, and then let's move on to the variable dependencies. We'll show you a dashboard which has a couple of variables, and I have built this dashboard quite some time back. So now when I open the dashboard, I want to see how these variables are linked. So you can go to the variables section and click on show dependencies. This will show you how these five variables are linked to each other. If you see, filter by is not linked to anything, but every other template variable is linked to filter by. It is of course a complex dependency, but this helps us understand, right, which variable is dependent on what. And then there is a show usages uh, as well. So here, if you see this filter by, this is the whole dashboard definition. It is being used in 6 places in the dashboard. You can actually zoom in and see the exact place where it is getting used. If you zoom further, we can see that, uh, Satya, can you zoom in at the bottom? Yeah. So we can see that under an expression, we are using filter by. Under a name, we are using filter by. So in which particular field are you using it and in which particular panel are you using it, everything can be understood from this particular graph that is being shown here. Okay. And that the other feature is around query renaming, I was telling, right? So whenever you are creating a panel, Satya, can we go to that panel once? Whenever we are creating a panel, right? If you see, we can just see that name of the query as A, B, and so on. Now you can actually rename your query, edit your query name, and put that um, some CPA trend based on 90. You can rename the query so that next time if we generally have multiple queries, so it will be quite easy to understand which query is what. And these names are also displayed in legends at times saying series A, series B. So if you rename it, your legends will also look richer and it'll add more meaning to your graph.